Movies of 1999.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 11 of the Movies of 1999, a podcast where we talk about movies from 1999 each week as selected by Bingo Machine. My name is Jason Hutchins.
And I'm Craig Talbot.
And in this episode we are talking about Enemy of the State, which is the movie we watched at last week's movie night. And we had paired that with Mickey Blue Eyes. And hang around to the end of the episode when we'll be crossing live to this week's movie night to find out which movies we'll be talking about in next week's show. So, Craig, happy St. Patrick's Day to you. How's everything going?
Is it St. Patrick's Day today? Oh, my goodness.
Well, it is St. Patrick's Day today, as in the day that this episode goes out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It's the 18th or something, isn't it? Right.
So it's the 17th of March tomorrow.
Oh, 17th of March. Right.
On the Sunday, but that's the day where this podcast will be going out. That's the day of the movie night. I'm considering making some Irish stew to mark the occasion if I get time. But at least there'll be some non-alcoholic Guinness for us to drink.
Excellent.
To start things off, I think we need to talk about why I selected Enemy of the State as one of the movies for this little project. And if you go onto Internet Movie Database, you'll see that it's really classified as a 1998 movie because the American release was in late 98, I think in December, but we didn't get it over here in Australia until early 99.
Okay.
So it sort of slips in on a technicality, and I think that's fair enough. I mean, I had to select 104 movies, and so broadening the net a little bit makes sense. But I remember that this was a movie that I enjoyed back in the day, and it was one of Will's favourite movies as well. So we've watched it a few times over the years, and it is quite prescient too. So considering the rise of surveillance, this movie did come out before 9/11, so it was prescient from that point of view. I'm sure we'll talk about some of that. That was paired with Mickey Blue Eyes. Can you guess why I paired that with Mickey Blue Eyes?
As I think I said to you during the week, I think there's a bit of an FBI/mob link to this, to these two movies. They both feature the mob and the FBI. So
that's exactly
I know it's
right.
mostly an NSA movie, Enemy of the State, but there is FBI agents involved. So
that's exactly right. That's the pairing was the mafia connection. But I think another interesting pairing that I only discovered after watching the movies is there's a bit of a Breaking Bad connection because Anna Gunn, who plays Skylar on Breaking Bad, she's in Enemy of the State in a fairly minor role. And Mark Margolis, who's also in Breaking Bad, he's in Mickey Blue Eyes. So he was the uncle in the wheelchair with the bell in Breaking Bad. So it's just interesting that two cast members are in two different movies. So
interesting. When we get to Mickey Blue Eyes, it's actually got a link to another famous TV series of that time. So anyway, we'll talk about that later. Yeah, how did the movie night go? Because this is the first time I wasn't there. So what was the impression on the night?
I think it was pretty good. We did enjoy Enemy of the State. I did build it up a bit, I think, by saying that it featured a realistic portrayal of surveillance, forgetting, of course, that they did the old classic zoom in and rotate with video footage, which is just patently impossible. So there were a few chuckles when we got to those scenes. But apart from that, it was a fairly good movie night. I think the other thing to mention is our segment Twin Spotting. We're going to have to put that one to bed because there was absolutely no twins.
No, I did look for twins for you, Jason, and for your Twin Spotting segment, and I couldn't spot any. I don't think that. I was hoping there might be one in Mickey Blue Eyes because that's often a trope in Italian mafia families that there's a pair of twins or something, but I didn't see that in Mickey Blue Eyes either, so sorry.
It was disappointing that we didn't roll a 22, it was just a
What
completely
number
random
was
number.
this movie? Because I don't know.
I think it was 43. We've had a lot of threes. We've had 13, 23, 33 and 43.
Yeah.
So we'll put that segment to bed, but we'll still maintain your segment, The Intermission, as you've retitled it.
I have decided to read over the Intermission. That's right.
In between the two movies, so quite an
a little bit of a
appropriate
different
title.
one today.
So I was chatting to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT wants to read out his synopsis himself this week. So,
Okay.
so we're going to cross over.
Okay.
We're
Yep,
going to
sure.
cross over now to ChatGPT, who is going to read the synopsis that he wrote. So over to you, ChatGPT.
Enemy of the State, directed by Tony Scott, is a high-octane action thriller that delves into the world of government surveillance and personal privacy. Starring Will Smith as Robert Clayton Dean, a successful lawyer unwittingly entangled in a deadly conspiracy when he receives evidence of a politically motivated murder. Pursued by a relentless team of National Security Agency operatives, led by the formidable Thomas Reynolds, played by Jon Voight, Dean must fight to clear his name. With the help of a secretive former intelligence operative, played by Gene Hackman, Dean embarks on a desperate quest to expose the truth, all while navigating a maze of hidden cameras, wiretaps, and the advanced technology used by his pursuers. Enemy of the State masterfully combines suspense, technology, and action, offering a prescient look at the implications of surveillance in modern society.
Wow.
Thank you, ChatGPT. And Craig, what did you think of the movie Enemy of the State?
I actually really enjoyed this movie. I think we mentioned before, it's a bit ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And going through the reviews and things for this movie this week, it is definitely a movie that people see as being a bit prescient of what was coming. Because you've got to consider it is 1999. And I actually quite enjoyed it from that point of view. I think Gene Hackman, who really only appears halfway through the movie, he's really got a great performance in this movie. This is his kind of movie.
It is interesting with Gene Hackman because I wouldn't have pictured him in this kind of role. I mean, you're right. That's a really good performance. But he's playing quite a technical, a bit of a geeky guy, really, isn't he? Because he's got all of his technology and stuff. And I didn't really think of him as playing that kind of character.
There's a movie that gets mentioned a lot in conjunction with this movie called The Conversation from 1974, which Gene Hackman is in. His photographs of him as an NSA agent are actually from that movie. So when you see the file, that's his file. And it's kind of considered to be a sequel to that movie.
Yeah,
Different
that's
directors.
interesting, isn't it?
It's quite a big gap in time. But The Conversation is on a very similar theme, but written in the 70s. Obviously released in the 70s. And so he's done a few movies like this since. So I've seen him in this kind of role. Not quite the technical role, but more the spy thriller kind of role before and since. So yeah, I think he is very, very good in this movie. I know Will Smith has got a bit of a controversial reputation now, but it's interesting to watch him in this movie because he is a genuinely likable character.
That's right.
He's a very likable person to watch.
He came from comedy, didn't he? So he was...
That's right. Yeah.
He was sort of playing that up a little bit in this movie as well and ad-libbing a bit.
That's right. His start was in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which I don't know if you've ever watched that TV series, Jason.
I didn't really watch it, no. I'm aware of it.
Well, I've watched I think the first season of that. It's quite excellent. It was definitely his breakout as a young actor. I think this was his, if not his first, one of his first serious acting roles.
Well, when was Independence Day? Was that before this?
Independence Day is before this.
Right.
Yes, that's that. But even there, he's quite often, he's the king of the comic one-liner. Even in that movie. He actually took a bit of a pay cut to do this movie because he's another one of these actors who really wanted to work with somebody else, and in this case, he really wanted to work with Gene Hackman, so he was very keen to do that. I thought the performance of Jon Voight was chillingly brilliant. He's absolutely terrifying in this movie,
he's quite good,
which he often is. He's played this kind of character a number of times. He really pulls off the evil security director or whatever you want to call him. He pulls that role off really, really well. Interesting to see Jack Black in this movie.
I know.
I did chuckle a little bit at that one because it's quite a serious role for him.
He also has a moment of comedy ad-lib, doesn't he, when he's talking about what he finds attractive in women or something?
Yes, there was some weird conversation about that, wasn't it?
Yeah. Unshaven armpits or something like that. I'm not sure what it was.
Older curvy women or something like that it was. Yeah, I know. That was a bit disturbing. Yeah. But anyway, each to their own.
And Lisa Bonet as well, because I've only very recently watched High Fidelity. Jack Black and Lisa Bonet are both in that, so it was interesting to watch them in another movie together. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Lisa Bonet, was a very famous actress in the 80s with the series with the man who should not be named, who's been cancelled these days.
That's right.
That very, very successful, family TV series. And Carla Dean, you see her in a lot of stuff. So I think she did a pretty good job.
Who was Carla Dean?
She's the wife of Will Smith.
Oh, yeah. So what's interesting about her, she was in the Watchmen TV show. Did you ever see that?
I've watched a couple of episodes.
Yeah. I really like that TV show. So I won't go down that rabbit hole. It's been a while since I've watched it. But yeah, she was in that, and that's where I remembered her from. The cast in general is pretty good, and even Jake Busey and Barry Pepper and these guys who have the ridiculous yellow haircuts,
all of those guys, all those character actors who often play these roles of the soldier or the mercenary or whatever. These guys have been in, I think also they play like the school bully, all of those kind of roles those guys play.
Yeah, the bro, I suppose, and Jason Lee, of course, the friend who gets hit on his bike, and Gabrielle Byrne popping up for a very brief cameo as well. Yeah,
there's a bunch of good actors and actresses in here. Interestingly, this film is probably one of the most successful that we've watched in terms of box office. Worldwide, it grossed over $250 million.
Wow.
On a production budget of $90 million, which also makes it one of the most expensive movies we've watched so far, I think.
There were a lot of explosions.
You should see the cast of stunt men and women, just that alone. There's a ridiculously long list on IMDb of stunt performers. So this is directed by Tony Scott. Do you know what movie he's probably the most famous for?
Well, he's Ridley Scott's brother. I can't remember.
Yeah, so Top Gun.
Is that a Tony Scott movie? Well, there you go, because we had a Top Gun alike movie. I think I called it Audi Top Gun the other week with Pushing Tin, the passenger aircraft version of Top Gun.
Produced by Jerry Bruckheimer, who's a name I'm sure will come up again, and screenplay by David Marconi. The composers on this movie, I thought the music was pretty good in this movie. So Harry Gregson Williams and Trevor Rabin did the music.
We remember, is it Harry Gregson Williams? He did the...
Harry Gregson Williams.
He worked with Hideo Kojima on the Metal Gear Solid soundtrack, I'm pretty sure.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Dan Mendel, is the cinematographer in this movie. The movie's largely set in Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, so we're still in the east of the United States. Bouncing around a little bit, but there you go. Okay, so Roger Ebert, the critic's critic, I think they call him, he said the movie was a fast-paced, centered around two big chase scenes, ending in a clever double cross that leads to a big shootout. So he quite liked this movie. I think he gave it 3 out of 4. Its general critical reception was around about that, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5 sort of stuff. A user review that I found quite interesting, a very recent user review from a guy called Krill, said, I keep coming back to this techno thriller, one of the best 90s thrillers, actually before its time. And he finished with that, Open Your Eyes. And I guess it is very much going down that road. I mean, that's a road now that there is a whole counterculture around. Interestingly, the NSA, though, there was a gentleman called Director Hayden, who was the NSA director who was appointed in the same year as this movie. And he was absolutely appalled by the depiction of the NSA in this movie.
Is he the guy who looks very much like John Voight? Because Will was pointing this out while we were watching the movie, that he's a lookalike. Yeah,
I'm not sure, but he was so appalled that they ran a PR campaign to try and restore the reputation of the NSA. But funnily enough, subsequently, Edward Snowden, who I'm sure you've heard of, revealed that there were indeed programs very, very similar to this, which were spying on Americans and foreign people a bit later. So the PRISM program was happening in the early 2000s and the mid-2000s. There's a lot of stuff in this movie which is a little bit dodgy in terms of what they could actually do at the time. Certainly all of the stuff with the satellites, there is absolutely no way on God's green earth. There are laws of physics around satellites, and you simply can't task a satellite to be over a spot in a few minutes in the way that they do. It's just not possible because they're orbiting the Earth, and you just can't change their direction and make them go to a particular spot. It takes time to have a satellite in a particular place. And they do have geostationary ones, but they don't have the ability to move them in the way that they show it in the movie. This was a point that came up years ago, actually.
Yeah.
When I first watched this movie, is it's just simply not possible for them to task satellites in that way.
But they do get a lot of it right, I think, in terms of how
there
the
is some,
surveillance
yeah.
works. And obviously, they exaggerate a lot of it. They did have an NSA advisor working closely with the production.
Yes,
and
a counter intelligence advisor worked with them on the movie.
And
Yeah.
and apparently his interview on the extra features of the DVD is worth watching. I haven't watched it myself yet.
Apparently, the NSA was so grumpy about this movie that they refused to cooperate with the film directors in any way. So even the aerial footage of Fort Meade in Maryland, which is where the NSA is based, that had to be done from public airspace because the NSA wouldn't cooperate in any way, shape or form.
It's interesting. Just 2 years afterwards, you had the Patriot Act, and I mean, this movie is about legislation being passed. So really,
it is very prescient in that sense. The Patriot Act was definitely a thing, and certainly in the years subsequent to this movie, the level of surveillance ironically ramped up massively.
Yes.
Post 2000, and then I think it was then dialed back a bit. But yeah, I mean, we now have a Department of Homeland Security in Australia, which we did not have in 1999. The type of intelligence gathering in Australia is very, very similar to what was being done in this movie.
Some of the surveillance that they did with satellites, they do actually do with high-flying aircraft.
Yes, yeah.
There was one case that I was reading about in Mexico City where someone was assassinated, but they actually have these high-flying aircraft that are just doing loops above the city, recording video. So when the assassination happened, they could look at the video from the point where the assassination happened and rewind the video to see all these cars that were converging on the spot, follow them all back to the point where they started from, and then go in and arrest people at those locations.
I think with drone technology now, there was a drone that was invented not long after this called the Global Hawk, which is exactly the kind of aircraft you're talking about.
Right.
Is able to loiter. So these loitering aircraft.
And just constantly recording footage, and then if that footage ends up being useful, they can rewind, which is mind-blowing. It's amazing.
Yeah, the US has definitely got some pretty amazing satellite technology. There are a large number of rocket launches, which, being a geek that I am, I keep track of regularly. I read the rocket report from Ars Technica every week. And Scott Manley, who's a YouTuber who goes through rocket launches of the week. And a lot of the, Chinese, Russian, American rocket launches of, shall we say, communications satellites or the like, which are well known to be surveillance satellites or spy satellites. The level of satellite detail you can get now, it's, you can drive down your own street. I could drive down your street now from here and probably see a view from a couple of months ago. It's quite a thing, You can drive down the street and see exactly where their house is so that you know where to go, It's quite terrifying, really, when you think about it. I mean, all of this was not a thing in 1999, and yet here we are talking about it in relation to this movie. So I actually found this really interesting. So you know how there was that very short car chase scene in the storm drain?
Yes.
Cars go racing through the storm drain.
It was a bit like The Fugitive, that part, yeah.
Yeah. Very complicated methodology for this one. So they shot it in an air duct tunnel, which is below Fort McHenry Road Tunnel in Baltimore, Maryland. The air duct is only accessible via the tunnel's administration building via a small elevator and some stairs. So in order to get the cars down there, they had to chop the cars up into several pieces so they could fit in the lift. Yeah, it gets better. They took them down 3 levels, reassembled them, painted them, and then when the filming was complete, so then they used the cars, and you barely see the cars in the actual film. Like, you can see the headlights and stuff. You don't actually see them in great detail. And then once it was complete, they disassembled them all again and removed them out.
Oh, that's ridiculous. That's where your $90 million went. It is a Jerry Bruckheimer produced movie, and there's going to be explosions, and they do have some pretty big explosions in this movie, don't they?
Yeah. So we've already talked about this a bit. Thomas Bryan Reynolds, who's John Voight's character, his birthday is actually September 11th.
I know, I spotted that. Yes, spooky.
Oh, did you?
Spooky.
Okay, yeah, that is spooky. And obviously with the whole post 9/11 thing, that is pretty darn spooky. This is one for the nerds, JSO, which I quite liked because I'm a nerd.
Everyone
I think
is
everyone
these
is,
days.
yeah. The portable video game system that Dean's son uses is not a common one. It's the disc is not, and it won't work. It's actually an NEC Turbo Express. They're worth quite a bit of money these days. It was a Game Boy competitor of the time, and it played TurboGrafx 16 games on a colour screen, but it never really made it in the US, so it was obscure enough for them to use in the movie as a piece of technology.
And Dave was so annoyed that they were calling this PCM-CIA card. They were referring to it as a disc.
Yes.
It's not a disc.
Well, that did annoy me too.
Solid state.
Yeah, it's just a PCM-CIA card. I mean, I don't think there really were PCM-CIA cards with storage on them. I don't remember that.
Yeah,
I
they
remember
were
there
hard
being
drives.
PCM-CIA hard drives.
I
don't
had a
remember
wireless
there being
plug-in for
solid
my
state.
laptop. I mean, you used to get laptops with these massive slots in them.
Yeah.
And you plug a card that's, you know,
They were
that big.
definitely used for wireless. They were definitely used for modems, and there were hard drives and things like that. But I don't remember there being a solid state memory card of that type. Compact Express was the. Yeah, it was classified. Yep. So, as I mentioned, this movie is considered to be a sequel to The Conversation, and it's got a photo of Edward Brill Lyle in it. Yeah, so an interesting movie. They put a fair bit of effort in. As I mentioned, Will Smith, when he was buying the lingerie, and he made this comment about cross-dressing.
Well, that whole lingerie shop sequence was even more unrealistic than moving satellites, I think, because where is there a lingerie shop where all the shop assistants are models dressed in lingerie? Yeah.
I can honestly say I don't think I've ever been in a lingerie shop in my life. If I've been near one, it's because my wife was in there and I'm sitting outside. But anyway, there was a whole comment in there about him cross-dressing on the weekends, and he said it was really, really hard for him not to make a joke, even though he was doing a serious dramatic. And it is quite a serious dramatic scene in amongst all the, the half-naked women.
It's the scene where the handover happens.
Yeah, that's right. And then he's sort of making a bit of a joke and stuff. But I don't think you can keep Will Smith down. It's pretty hard. I think in all of his movies, a bit of comedy comes out.
But I tell you what, if you're running away from the NSA agents and you bump into your friend who's a lawyer, you probably just stay next to him. Don't secretly give him the piece of evidence that you've got and then go and ride a bike down a freeway. I mean, you should just stay next to the guy who's the lawyer. Yeah.
I must admit, I admired the aerobic capabilities of the NSA agents following him.
Oh, that guy running after him. My goodness.
Somehow they managed to run after him while he was powering away on a bicycle and keep up with him. And they ran for quite some distance through the shops and all that kind of stuff. So clearly the NSA makes sure its agents are very fit. I think Will would have been proud of their running. I suspect.
Oh, yes.
So Will probably could have kept up with them.
And how lucky was it that Will Smith's character, his other case, because he's a lawyer, of course, his other case was a mob case that also happened to involve video evidence. So that's right. Yeah, that's right. So the way that the movie gets wrapped up with this Mexican standoff, and I think they went completely Tarantino at the end there, and they took that classic idea from Reservoir Dogs, where you've got people pointing guns at each other. They were like, what if we had like 30 people pointing guns at each other? So,
yeah, well, actually, that's another link with these two movies. They both have Mexican standoffs and they both end up in people being shot and whatnot. So, yeah, anyway, interesting. That's my thoughts anyway on Enemy of State. It was a pretty good movie.
It was good and very entertaining. And after that Mexican standoff, I was watching it with my son as well, and he really likes Jack Black. And Jack Black, of course, is one of the bad guys almost in this movie. And he does end up in the restaurant kitchen at the end there in the middle of the Mexican standoff. And you see him get shot.
Yes, he ends up with a sling.
But then, of course, out of all the characters who survive, it looks like most of the characters die.
Yeah, that's pretty much right.
And the only survivors that you know of are Will Smith, the lead, and of course they show Jack Black surviving as well, just for the fans.
But I think Jack Black was important because he had the taped evidence.
He did. He sort of turned at the end there, and I think he started recording the conversation at the end there to gather more evidence. Yeah, so...
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Shall we move on, or?
Yeah, so that was Enemy of the State. All in all, quite an entertaining reimagining of these political thrillers of the 70s with explosions and car chases. Just sort of dialed it up for a 90s audience, but very prescient. And, watching it 25 years later, a lot of it does ring true.
I think it's a movie that it stands up well in 2023.
Now,
All right.
before we move on, we're going to start our second in a series of segments called the Intermission. Do you have a theme song?
Yeah. No, I don't have a theme song. I need to get one, don't I?
Yes.
I need a little bit of a theme to introduce the intermission. So this week I thought I would talk to you all about the most popular book of 1999. I looked it up via several sources, including something that's close to your heart, Jason, Goodreads, and a few other sources. And the book that kept coming up as a standout for 1999, the number one book of the year, was Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. So the movie for this didn't come out until several years later, so we won't be talking about the movie here. But the Harry Potter book came out in both the United Kingdom and the USA in 1999, and it's got a 4.58 out of 5 rating on Goodreads, and is considered to be the most popular book of 1999. It's the third book in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, and I have to say, I started reading it again this week in preparation for this podcast, and it's fascinating how easy they are to read. They're a very easy series of books to read. I've only really read the first book before. I hadn't actually read this third book before. It really is an enchanting book, and it continues the adventures of the young wizard Harry Potter and his friends at Hogwarts. This is his third year at the school. He's still struggling with the people that he lives with over summer, and there's quite a bit about that. He ends up leaving the house because he gets treated pretty badly. It introduces the concept of the prison of Azkaban, which is the prison for wizards, and the Dementors, who are the guards in the book and also in the movie. The main character of Sirius Black, who is a prisoner who's escaped from Azkaban, initially is believed to be after Harry. Rowling's writing is as imaginative and vivid as ever. I know she's probably not the most popular of people these days because of some of her more controversial views, but her books are still very, very popular. Certainly with the age groups that I come into regular contact with through my job, they still love the Harry Potter series. And, the characters of Harry, Ron and Hermione are still very... They in this book, they show significant growth, and they face some challenges that test their courage and their friendship. And there's some new characters such as Professor Lupin and Sirius Black. The book's praised for its ability to appeal to both young and older readers. Yeah, it's a good little book, actually. And it's interesting, the world was very much gripped in the whole... Well, let's say the world of people under the age of 18 was gripped in Harry Potter madness at this time. And I think it only accelerated when the movies came out. So, when
did the first movie come out? Was it 2000?
About 2000, 2000, 2001, I think it was. You never know, if this series of podcasts continues, we may talk about it at some point. But, Jesse looks terrified when I say that.
I remember, because in late 99, I moved to London, and I remember being on the tube. Back then, there were no smartphones. In fact, a lot of people didn't have mobile phones at all. And on the tube, you would see everyone was either reading a newspaper or reading a novel.
Yep.
And the number of adults going to work who would be reading one of the Harry Potter books, standing on the tube, it was just remarkable. It was everywhere,
Obviously, these days, it's mostly considered a children's novel or for kids, but there's a huge adult following. I mean, as I said, I started reading it again this week and quite enjoyed the chapters that I've read so far. I think I'm about halfway through the book at the moment. And, this particular book won 3 awards, including I think the Whitbread Children's Book Award in the United Kingdom. It's very highly regarded.
Yeah, interesting.
So that's the intermission, a little bit of an intermission about Harry Potter.
The world of 1999. Hopefully that's given everyone a chance for a quick toilet break.
Thanks, mate. Yeah.
Isn't that what an intermission is for?
That's right. Yeah, that's fair. But anyway, I thought that was interesting just to pick up something different. So I might pick up a different topic next week.
It is interesting, and it does remind me of being in London and just how different the world was, where you would be on a public transport and everyone would be reading a big thick novel on their way to work, whereas these days you wouldn't see very much of that at all. Everyone would be on their smartphone or listening to music or watching videos or something like that.
I think for me, the popularity of those books amongst the 9, 10 to 12-year-old market of children is just incredible.
Yeah,
Like
it was crazy.
It's still much beloved.
When a new book was released, that was a huge event. People would be lining up outside of bookstores to grab a copy.
Yeah, and every time a new Harry Potter movie comes out, all of the kids know about it. All of the kids know about Harry Potter. If I wanted to be popular, I could sit down with a Harry Potter book and every kid would listen to me.
Yeah.
They're pretty good books on their own. Their language is fairly accessible and all that kind of stuff. They're not literary masterpieces.
Yeah.
But they're good books.
Well,
this one is certainly very readable.
I think the best books are readable and have language that's accessible. I'm reading a book now called Skippy Dies, and the author has this habit of using some complicated synonym for particular words. And I find myself having to look up the definition of words all the time. It's like, well, why didn't you just use the word that people would normally use in that situation? Why do you have to go off and be all fancy?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I found when I went back to studying at university a few years ago. I find myself accessing the dictionary frequently because academics love the big word. And if they can find a word that can express a whole concept that no one else knows, they'll definitely chuck it into the paper that they're writing.
Yeah.
I think it's required that you have to come up with some big word to describe something.
Which is a bit ridiculous because you don't truly understand something unless you can explain it to a 12-year-old, I don't think. So why not write that way to begin with?
Anyway, shall we talk about Mickey Blue Eyes?
Yes, so let's switch over to the good old Mickey Blue Eyes. Looking forward to this one. And maybe ChatGPT once again wants to read out the synopsis he wrote himself. Starting to take over this podcast. So over to you, ChatGPT.
Mickey Blue Eyes, a comedic gem directed by Kelly Macon, stars Hugh Grant as Michael Felgate, an endearingly awkward British auctioneer living in New York City who finds himself in a hilarious predicament when he proposes to his girlfriend, Gina, played by Jean Triplehorn. His dreams of marital bliss take a wild turn when he discovers that Gina's father, portrayed by James Caan, is deeply entangled in the mafia. As Michael attempts to blend into his prospective in-laws' unconventional lifestyle, he unwittingly becomes involved in their dubious activities, leading to a series of misunderstandings and comic situations. With its charming mix of romance, comedy, and a touch of crime, Mickey Blue Eyes offers a lighthearted take on love, family, and the lengths one will go to for the sake of love.
Thanks for that, ChatGPT. That's Mickey Blue Eyes. And Craig, what did you think of this movie?
It's not too bad. It's not too bad. It's not terrible. I know you don't like the rom-com, Jason. I don't mind the rom-com.
Look, a rom-com when done well can be well worth watching. This is not a rom-com that was done well.
I think there's some good ones in this particular year. There's actually a couple of really good rom-coms in this year. Look, this is directed by Kelly Macon and Carl Gottlieb. It's the first movie that I've seen that has double directing credits on it. So I don't recall there being another one this year. I'm not sure. Kelly Macon is generally credited with directing the movie, but Carl Gottlieb I'm guessing was like an advisor to Kelly Macon because he's also credited with direction as well.
Right.
This is actually produced by Elizabeth Hurley and Hugh Grant's company. So they were boyfriend and girlfriend at this time. And this is actually their company, Simeon Productions, I think it was called. It's a Hugh Grant movie. He plays Hugh Grant in the movie. Yes. It's pretty much Hugh Grant playing Hugh Grant, really. You don't even really need to know the name of the character.
No.
It's Hugh Grant. I thought Jeanne Tripplehorn was pretty good. And there's a little interesting little factoid around her, actually. I don't know if you've ever watched Four Weddings and a Funeral, Jason.
Well, that is the movie that started all this ridiculous sequence of Hugh Grant sort of being awkward and foppish.
Dear. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I like Hugh Grant, but yeah. So anyway, she was originally cast as Carrie in that movie.
Okay.
The love interest in that movie for Hugh Grant. She couldn't do it because there was a death in her family, so she had to go home, and she was replaced by Andie MacDowell. I don't think Four Weddings and a Funeral would have been the same movie without Andie MacDowell.
No, but that was a massive hit. Four Weddings and a Funeral. You know, it made so much money back. I think they were just trying to keep on mining the same vein of gold that they'd discovered.
I mean, there's many rom-coms with Hugh Grant in it playing essentially
the same character. And when you watch one of these movies, you kind of know what to expect, but it doesn't have the same, like the screenplay isn't as good as the one for Four Weddings and a Funeral. And that's probably what this movie needed. It probably needed some more writers to come in and sort of work on the screenplay, and it feels like it hasn't been workshopped enough. It's almost like a draft version of the screenplay. There's one sequence where they make the same joke twice. When he's in the restaurant and the gun falls down his pants leg and onto the ground, they just do it twice. Like, why did they do it twice? They did it once when he walked in, and then they did it a second time. It's like it's the same joke, you know. So they really needed some more comedy writers.
I think they were struggling a little bit with the whole plot and trying to fit crime and mafia in with a rom-com is pretty tricky, I think. And trying to make it comedic, I think, was the thing.
It's a pretty good.
I think
it's a pretty good idea. I mean, it has the skeleton of a good idea, and they just didn't flesh it out enough. I get the impression almost like they were shopping around for screenplays that Hugh Grant could be the leading man in, and when they found one, they pounced on it and wanted to get it made and out the door quickly to capitalise on this.
I did go down a little bit of a rabbit hole with the writers. They haven't really done anything massively impressive before or since.
Well, he was isn't he a Canadian comedy writer who did Kids in the Hall? What's his name?
Adam Scheinman and Robert Kuhn are the two writers.
Yeah.
And they're both comedic writers in the main.
Yep.
They're not, I mean, there's nothing really great that they've done. I didn't see anything in the list of things that either of them had done.
No.
Probably the most famous person on the crew is Basil Polidorus, who's been responsible for the music in a number of really quite outstanding movies. So he's involved in this one as well. The cinematography, I thought the only thing I didn't go down the rabbit hole with this guy, but his name is Donald E. Torrent, which I thought was really interesting because I'm reading The Hobbit to my class at the moment at school, and Torrent is one of the lead characters.
The cinematographer was a Hobbit?
Possibly he was. I don't know. I don't know a lot about him. This is an interesting little factoid. So, as you're probably aware, The Sopranos was being filmed at the same time. So there are 8 cast members from The Sopranos in this movie. Vincent Pastore, John Ventimiglia, Ada Turturro, Joseph Ganascoli, Frank Pellegrino, Burt Young, and Tony Darrow are all in The Sopranos. Imagine every single Italian character actor that you can imagine. They're in this movie.
Yes.
It was like a roll call. I thought James Caan's role in this movie as a semi-comedic actor was actually pretty good. He did a pretty good job.
He hammed it up a little bit.
He did, yeah. I mean, he's known for... He's I didn't know, but James Caan is actually in The Godfather.
Right.
So that's how far back we're going here. He actually nicknamed Hugh Grant Whippy after the Whippet, an English breed of dog that shivers a lot. Because apparently Hugh Grant does have that characteristic sort of shiver that he does. I found an interesting review by Lee Patch, who's from the Herald Sun. There are nice comic touches here and there, usually involving the odd reference to the Goodfellas and the Godfather. The rest is pure ham off the bone, which I think you would agree with.
Yeah.
It was a bit hammed. One of the mobsters' names in the movie is called Tony Two Toes, which is also a name of a mobster in Eraser. And again, the films share cast members, including Joe Vitarelli. The theme music for the film was just recycled from the TV show Jeeves and Wooster, which is P.G. Wodehouse's series of books, and it's got Hugh Grant and Stephen Fry.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the TV series back in the day, and also I've read the books. I thought that was a bit interesting. They just basically lifted it straight from the TV series.
Which I think adds some weight to the theory that they just rushed this out to capitalise on the Hugh Grant mania.
Yeah, that's right. This is an interesting one, and I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with this one. Vincent Pastore showed up late to the filming one day, and James Caan was pretty grumpy with him because he was waiting around for him. And Pastore said, well, my other film that I was shooting ran late that day, and Caan realised that Pastore was doing 2 films at the same time. He backed off. So Pastore, in addition to being involved in The Sopranos that year, he's actually involved in 5 other movies.
It's amazing, isn't it?
He's another workaholic.
Actors were very busy in 1999.
Yeah. He's in, probably including 1998. Let's assume that this was being filmed probably 1998-ish. He's probably working on about 8 movies all at once, plus The Sopranos, which would have been quite a punishing schedule, because I think back in those days they were doing at least 22 episodes, and I'm pretty sure he's involved in that. Yeah, some very, very busy actors.
Yeah, but poor old Mark Margolis from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and a lot of Darren Aronofsky movies. He was the guy being shown around the art gallery. Never really got a chance to say anything.
No, I didn't really understand his character. He kept popping up in the movie, and he's constantly being shown.
It was like someone they were trying to
constantly-
impress, and he would keep on walking in on awkward situations.
Yeah, on all these silly situations. That kind of didn't work.
Yeah.
I don't know why they persisted with it.
And he was
I
a
think
bit
it was just
wasted
an
in this
excuse.
movie. Such a great actor. He was.
Yeah, and like I think it was just a bit of comic relief maybe they were going for there.
Well,
or-
it didn't need comic relief. It needed comic comedy.
Yeah, probably the funniest bit. I noticed in a lot of the user reviews, the scene where Khan attempts to teach Hugh Grant how to say forget about it and all that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
That's considered to be the funniest part of this
Yeah,
movie.
I didn't find that too
I
funny.
don't-
It was a bit cringy.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the
Yeah.
funniest moments for me, because I had a couple of funny moments and they were all fairly minor and didn't really involve Hugh Grant. I thought the Chinese restaurant scene with the
Yes.
proposal
all
that went
standing around
wrong,
it.
where he's trying to propose by putting a message in the fortune cookie, but then the fortune cookie gets delivered to another
It's the
table.
wrong-
But
yeah.
the owner of the Chinese restaurant, I thought that lady was quite funny as well.
Not waitress, owner.
Yes,
Yeah.
she was good.
Yeah, she was really good.
I thought the very elderly auction lady was
Yeah.
really good as well.
Yeah, she was a bit. Again, there was lots of these little side stories.
Yes.
where they.
I think that's where the
and
movie worked best, where there was a side story that involved a different character, like a minor character. They were the funniest moments. And
Yeah.
like when when Hugh Grant is hamming it up and playing his foppish, awkward Englishman kind of character, that's where it fell flat a bit for me, because it was all a bit obvious and it was all a bit hammy. Yeah.
But I think again, in the context of the time, an audience would have loved this. It actually did all right, dollars wise. It made back its budget. I think it cost about $20 million to make, and it made 54 million. So it did all right.
I also like Scott Thompson, who played one of the FBI agents who went into disguise, and he is from Kids in the Hall. So I think there is a Kids in the Hall, because that's a Canadian comedy TV series. I think they did a movie as well.
Okay.
And I think one of the writers was a writer on that. So there's some sort of connection there. But he played that FBI agent who became one of the florists and then was Hugh Grant's best man at the wedding. And that wedding scene at the end was just ridiculous with the with the gun with the blanks and then the other gun and just silly.
Yeah, it all got a bit messy.
Mm.
It was kind of quite violent it's probably the most violent of the rom-coms I've ever seen. All this sort of gun violence and all this kind of stuff. And people getting shot and whatnot, and then everything works out, It was an interesting mix. Again, it's probably one of these ones where they were trying for a harder edge, but didn't quite, kind of chickened out on the harder edge,
And then the movie culminates with Gina accidentally killing her cousin.
She kills her cousin.
Yeah,
That's right. Who's Vito's son.
Like the way her character reacts to that, she still is very righteous, and her reaction to that was all wrong.
It didn't really make sense that she was still angry with him because he was trying to clean up a mess that she'd actually created.
Yeah.
She was the one who killed him.
And she didn't really show very much remorse or anything. And it was very weird.
I think there were a few moments when, she sort of said, I'm trying to deal with being a murderer, or, this is my first murder, or that kind of thing. And, I think probably maybe if you came from a family like that, where that kind of thing was fairly common, it was all sort of glossed over. I think this is the problem with trying to do a comedy about what is quite a dark subject,
Well, I think, like I say, I think it could have worked with more skillful writers or maybe more comedy writers. I did see this movie at the time. I think I might have even seen it in the cinema at the time, and I remembered that I really didn't like it back then either. So some things don't change. I reckon one of our worst B-list movies so far.
Yeah.
So think about it. We've had Toy Story 2, Tarzan, The Ninth Gate, Mansfield Park, Strange Planet, Holy Smoke, The Faculty, Pushing Tin, Hideous Kinky.
Yeah,
I
we've watched a lot of
reckon
films.
It's the worst of them.
We've watched a lot of movies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it probably is one of the worst of the ones that we've seen this year. That's true.
Margaret and David didn't like it either.
Didn't they?
No.
See, I didn't mind The Ninth Gate. I know we were quite hard on that movie in the podcast that we did, but I didn't mind it too much.
So Margaret and David said that it was disappointing. It's not as good as this, which had a similar premise and had come out earlier. I might have to bleep that one. Yeah, they just say Hugh Grant's just playing Hugh Grant, and it's just a really lazy...
It is a bit of a lazy movie.
Lazy movie.
Look, it's one of those ones where they just churn out the movie. The reason why they do this is because, you know, these rom-coms do make money.
It's a cash grab, basically. Yeah. So let's leave it there. That was Mickey Blue Eyes. Disappointing Mickey Blue Eyes. Well, the last thing for this week's episode is to cut live to tonight's movie night for the spinning of the bingo ball, and we'll find out what we're going to be watching next week. Will the number have a 3 in it? Will it be an Irish movie to celebrate St. Patrick's Day? Time will tell. So let's go over now live to the movie night and cross to you, future Jason. Okay, so here we are at the movie night, and we're going to roll, and I think all bets are on a 3, aren't they? Ending in 3? Well, 3 is the only possibility, just to complete the line. So let's see what we get. And the ball's dropped, and what is it? It's number 27. Number 27.
What film is it?
Well, the film this week is Ronin. Ronin.
Oh, right.
Ronin.
Cool, I've been watching Shogun all week, so that's good.
Did you ever kill anybody?
I hurt somebody's feelings once.
5 professionals.
Oh, I know you. I don't think so. It's a small world. Not in my experience.
Hired for a mission
This is what we're after.
to recover a package
We need to take it intact from several men who will be intent on preventing us.
Nice. My kind of job.
that some are willing to die for.
Relax, darling. Just a game.
Could you take a picture of me and my wife? Get the background.
Guy goes for the case. Other guy's protecting the principal. Oh, they're good.
And everyone is willing to kill for.
I want $100,000. I want it up front. I want another $100,000 when you get the case.
All good things come to those who wait.
Target is on the way.
We've gotten the word. We're moving.
Come on, let's go.
You don't want to go in there.
Get out of here.
Walk away.
Walk away.
Let's go! How did you know it was an ambush?
That's the first thing they teach you.
Who taught you?
I don't remember. That's the second thing they teach you.
We've made a good plan, and we're going to stick with it.
Who's this girl work for?
Are you afraid?
Of course I'm afraid. You think I'm reluctant because I'm happy? Who are our employers?
I'm not under any obligation to let you know.
If you are not, then the price has got to go up.
It's not going to happen.
The girl sold us out. We're following the wrong people.
Get in the car!
From director John Frankenheimer, Robert De Niro, Jean Reno, Natasha McElhone, Stellan Skarsgård, Sean Bean, and Jonathan Pryce.
I won't hurt you.
Ronin.
You worried about saving your own skin?
Yeah, I am. Covers my body.
And the second movie paired with Ronin is called Summer of Sam, which I think is a serial killer movie.
Hey, I had a real good time tonight.
You busy tomorrow night? I'd really like to see you again.
There was something in the air. You danced so great tonight, baby.
Ah, 'cause you're beautiful. New York City, 1977.
Is that Richie?
What's happening, guys?
You come back to the neighborhood looking like a freak. You're supposed to be okay with that?
A time of endless possibilities
You want to be my dog?
A naughty girl.
and serial hysteria.
Double homicide.
Police received a letter from the 44 caliber killer, calling himself the Son of Sam.
What happened?
I just saw the bodies.
I am the monster, Beelzebub. In one hot summer,
These are victims 6 and 7.
in one neighborhood,
Vinny saw the dead bodies last night.
Saw the bodies?
between friends and lovers,
The Son of Sam killer, who has been targeting young women, has caused panic-stricken brunettes to dye their hair blonde.
I feel like I'm cheating on you with you.
anyone is a target.
I think he's after me. I'm gonna be number 8. You know, I'd lay 5 to 1 to kill us from right here.
And everyone is a suspect.
It's a blackout.
We understand that the lights are out.
Just stay in your house, lock your doors.
City that never sleeps has come to a standstill.
I know who the killer is. Reggie Jackson.
What's the matter with you?
What kind of gun did the killer use? 44 caliber, right? What's Reggie's number? 44. Richie's the son of Sam. They think he's the son of Sam, the 44 caliber killer.
Benny, stop it!
Nobody gets in my neighborhood without me knowing it.
You think I'm the son of Sam?
Everybody's got two personalities, man.
Anybody out there?
A Spike Lee joint.
Son of Sam, come and get me!
John Leguizamo, Adrian Brody, Mira Sorvino, Jennifer Esposito, and Ben Gazzara.
That psycho is gonna have no place to hide.
In 1977, the summer belonged to Sam.
And there you have it. They are the two movies we'll be watching on next week's show. Let's hope that they're good ones and don't involve Hugh Grant in any way.
Well, there's a potential Hugh Grant movie, I think. So
I think in terms of Hugh Grant's career, he's sort of like he had the beginning of the career where he did all these rom-coms and pretty much played himself all the time. He's having a little bit of a renaissance now, sort of a second career, I think, where I appreciate the movies that he's in a bit more than I did back in the day. So,
shall we wrap up? Or?
Yeah, I think that's where we're all done. So I'll leave the final word to David. There's no Margaret this week. It's one of those clips they used to do on the movie show every now and again where just one of them would review a movie.
Okay.
So David's going to be talking about Enemy of the State. And until next week's show, that's goodbye from me.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.
The 70s produced a series of memorable conspiracy theory films. Enemy of the State, a crackerjack new thriller from the variable Tony Scott, takes that tradition and adds to it the usual 90s chases and explosions. Hackman's Brill seems at times almost like the same character, Harry Caul, the actor played in The Conversation back in 1974. Enemy of the State is a superior thriller, ingeniously scripted, well cast, energetically directed. It's one of those films which make you realise that at the end of the century, Big Brother is really very capable of watching each and every one of us. A truly paranoid conception. My only real quibble is this modern obsession with big bangs. Hollywood producers seem to think no thriller is complete without at least one massive explosion, and I'm getting heartily sick of them. Still, this is a 4-star film for me.